I've got chronic IBS, gastritis and acid reflux, and this is what works for me. Cowabunga dudes. So in this video I just wanted to talk a little bit about my nutrition, my diet, sort of what I'm doing for my digestive health problems. I've got a lot of comments on my gastritis video. I know that when I started suffering from like IBS and acid reflux and gastritis, that I would search the internet, Google and YouTube, and try and find other people that have had similar experiences and found some sort of relief, and trying to find out what they did. So before I get into the skateboarding, I want to talk about what I've been doing, what I've found some success with. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, I've actually been suffering with that for almost 10 years. I've got ibs-c. My digestion is really slow, especially if I have too much fibre. Gastritis and acid reflux, I've been dealing with really severe gastritis and acid reflux for 2.5 years now, coming up 3 years I think. Those have been incredibly difficult. Gastritis mainly caused a lot of pain in the top of my stomach and a lot of bloating and stomach distension, as does the IBS, causes me a lot of bloating and distension. IBS, the pain tends to be more towards the bottom of my stomach, like my intestines. Acid reflux is just, oh god, it's just absolutely nasty. That and the gastritis causes me a ton of nausea, dizziness, sickness, feeling very weak and shaky. The acid reflux causes a lot of the acid to come up from the stomach into my esophagus, into my mouth, and when it gets particularly bad, burns the esophagus, causes water breath, which means the acid is coming up and your body tries to neutralize it by producing a lot of saliva. And so when it's particularly bad, I get a ton of saliva in the back of my throat and in my mouth. Really nasty stuff. It causes a very metallic sour taste in my mouth when it gets particularly bad, which is not good. So I was on a lot of medication last year for the gastritis and acid reflux, omeprazole, H2 blockers, antibiotics. They're only going to help so much. If you don't sort out your diet, then it's probably not going to get to the root cause of the issue, or at least I found anyway that just really addressing my diet and finding out what works for me, finding out which foods trigger my symptoms and make things a lot worse. That has been the most important thing for making me feel better and avoiding pain and discomfort. So over the last few years I've been trying to find out which foods I needed to cut out, which foods make my symptoms worse. At this point I follow a pretty strict paleo based template, so I cut out grains, I cut out dairy, I've cut out pretty much all food with like added sugars, and I've cut out legumes as well. These are foods that either cause my symptoms to get much worse, like my digestive symptoms, or these are foods that are like known to be problematic for quite a lot of people, and they can cause digestive issues and they can cause inflammation. Definitely notice when I eat a lot of these foods, I get splitting migraines, the worst headaches ever, especially grains that contain gluten. So I do my best to avoid them. My diet is not perfect, but I try and keep it as paleo friendly as possible. So no gluten. I try not to eat grains of any kind, because I do notice that even grains without gluten can cause me stomach upset and a lot of headaches. I try not to eat any dairy. Lactose in particular, the sugar that's in dairy, causes me a ton of digestive problems. Like if I have anything with lactose in it, my stomach will balloon up twice the size within an hour. I get that with gluten as well, although it's much worse with dairy. And again, like, I still will have digestive problems if I have dairy that doesn't contain lactose. I've experimented with like lactose-free dairy products, and most of them still give me a ton of problems. Like I'll be in a lot of pain for the rest of the day. My stomach will just balloon up and become really distended, and I won't be able to like eat for the rest of the day, even if I'm really hungry, because it'll just be too painful. One of the exceptions with me seems, and this is like quite common with paleo, is grass-fed butter, because there's like this. I tend to get away with cooking with butter or adding it as an ingredient into like my sweet potato mash or something like that. However, if you are really sensitive to dairy and you can't have butter, it's always clarified butter, which is called ghee. If you can't even have that, there's stuff like coconut oil and stuff you can cook with. And then legumes, so stuff like soy causes me a lot of headaches. And I do notice that it causes me some digestive issues, but not as much as dairy or grains, but it definitely causes me to get headaches and makes my migraines a lot worse. Cut out food that are full of trans fats and hydrogenated oils, sugary junk food, stuff that's filled with trans fats that your body just doesn't know what to do with, and like added sugar, crisps, cookies, chips, candies, sweets, ice cream, stuff like that. I try and avoid that as much as possible. So that's what I don't eat. So this may seem like I cut a ton of food out. It's like, you might be thinking like, oh, you avoid all these foods, that leaves hardly anything. But I definitely don't think of it that way. I get to eat a ton of food that is really good for me and makes me feel good and fills me with energy, helps me recover from exercise. So very often overlooked part of diet is vegetable oils. Processed, refined vegetable oils, seed oils, these can be really inflammatory on the body. So I'm very mindful of what I cook with. I'll cook with like coconut oil, butter, olive oil, avocado oil. I won't cook with extra virgin olive oil. I'll put that on my food. I won't cook with it. I'll just cook with normal olive oil. Yeah, like many vegetable oils like canola oil, which we call rapeseed oil in the UK, sunflower oil, stuff like that can be really inflammatory in the body. It's actually in tons of food. Probably the worst culprit are salad dressings, food dressings, like and sauces. Man, it's in a lot of these inflammatory oils. They do make my migraines so much worse. I do notice that my digestive health is better when I don't have them, but so many sauces and salad dressing, like ranch dressing, like mayo as well. The stuff is in mayo, so I tend to make my own mayonnaise as well. So I'll eat mayonnaise made from avocado oil or olive oil, and I'll often make that myself. And from that you can make tons of like your own salad dressing and sauces and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of these oils are really inflammatory, can lead to a lot of serious health problems. So yeah, I don't eat milk or cream and stuff like that. I'll have substitutes like almond milk. Again, I don't eat grains. Try and avoid gluten. Cook with stuff like almond flour and coconut flour. Don't really eat sweets. The exception being dark chocolate, like 85% dark chocolate. I seem to be absolutely fine with that. Like Lindt and Green and Black do really good dark chocolate. They don't seem to make my symptoms worse, and they're so low in sugar, they don't really spike insulin that much. Now I know a lot of people get really sort of they treat their diet like a religion, and they get really dogmatic with their diet, and I'm not really interested in that side of things. Like regarding the paleo diet, I don't really care what a caveman used to eat, might or may not have eaten. I care about if my food makes me feel good or if it makes me feel a lot worse. If a food causes me a lot of pain and discomfort, then it's out. And it just so happens that when I eat the foods that I'm left with, I'm eating a paleo diet, and that makes me feel good when I eat these foods that don't make my symptoms worse. You might think that cutting all these foods that I cut out sounds really restrictive, and this might sound like a really difficult diet to stick to, but it's really not hard. It's really not hard at all. I'm left with a ton of food that I get to eat that is really nice. I have a really big motivator not to cheat on this diet. I have a really big motivator to stick with the foods that I eat, and that's pain and discomfort are a really good motivator. When I know that if I eat certain foods, they're gonna cause me a ton of pain and discomfort. My stomach is gonna swell, like double in size, and I'm gonna get really severe migraines. That's an incredibly strong motivator. I'm not 100% compliant with the diet. Like every now and then I'll have something that's not technically paleo, but the vast majority of the time I stick to my diet, and that's because if I don't, I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna be in a lot of pain and discomfort. I'm gonna have really severe migraines, and my stomach's gonna be in a lot of pain. I'm gonna have bad acid reflux. My throat is gonna be burning. I'm gonna have lots of nasty saliva and stuff in my mouth. I'm probably gonna get constipated, or my stomach is gonna become really distended and like double in size within an hour, especially with like dairy and lactose containing foods. It seems like food intolerance is a really common reason for people to take up like a paleo or a ketogenic diet. It's a pretty good elimination diet when you take out a lot of foods that are really problematic for a lot of people. The paleo diet compliant foods are sort of what you're left with. You might not know sort of how problematic a food is for you until you cut it out. And what I like about the paleo diet is like what you're left with is like healthy food that's good for you and fills you with energy and makes you feel good, or at least for me anyway. So cutting out the grains, the dairy, the legumes, the like sugary foods, I'm left with meat, fish, eggs, fresh fruit and vegetables, and I feel good eating those foods. And it really isn't hard. Like, a lot of people would think they would not enjoy eating this way, but it really isn't hard. Being in constant pain and discomfort is hard, but eating food that is good for me, eating meat, fish, eggs, fresh fruit and vegetables is not hard. I don't really think about all the foods that I've had to give up because I'm too busy enjoying the foods that I get to eat. And they don't cause me pain and discomfort or cause me to feel unwell. So yeah, again, I'm not perfect with it. Every now and then I'll deviate from the plan and have something that's not technically paleo. But avoiding pain and discomfort for me is a much bigger motivator than the pleasure that I'd get from eating junk food. I'd much rather avoid pain and discomfort than have some like cake or some cookies. Or avoiding pain and discomfort is a much stronger motivator for me than having something that contains a lot of gluten or lactose or soy or something like that. The cool thing is you can like paleoify pretty much any junk food you can turn into a paleo compliant food, like almost any dessert, like cookies, cakes, brownies, burgers. You can make pretty much anything paleo or keto, almost anything anyway. Like bread's kind of hard to do. I enjoy making like paleo friendly desserts and foods and stuff like that. Paleo versions of like comfort food. To be honest, I really don't feel like I'm missing out. I spent quite a lot of time keto and paleo last year, and so my body's become quite well fat adapted. My body's become better at using fat, like healthy fats for fuel, so like nuts, seeds, fatty meat, eggs, stuff like avocado. Although they say that a lot of fatty, unhealthy foods can make acid reflux and gastritis worse, I have found that as long as I stick to like healthy fats, salmon is one of the fats that I like to eat the most. As long as I stick to the healthy sources of fat, I'm absolutely fine. Although everybody is a little bit different, but because I eat so much healthy fat, my body's very efficient at using fat for fuel, and so I have a lot of energy throughout the day. I have noticed that when I eat a lot of carbohydrates, that my IBS gets a lot worse. So naturally cutting out grains and stuff like that, I don't eat that many carbs anyway, but like there's only so many sweet potatoes that you can, but even like sweet potato, which my body deals with really well, if I have too many carbs, like it's going to cause me digestive issues. If I have too much fiber, it's going to cause me make my IBS worse. It's going to slow down my digestion too much. I'm going to get constipated. I do eat sweet potato and green leafy vegetables. Just try not to have too much. And I'm in ketosis like the vast majority of the time. So for like 4 or 5 days a week, I'm on a ketogenic diet just because I'm not having that many carbs, and because my body is using fat for fuel, like aerobic exercise, particularly skateboarding, I feel like I've got a ton of energy. I feel really good. But some days I'll have a little bit more carbs. Like on my high carb days, I won't even go over 150 grams of carbs. It's usually around 100 grams. And I still feel really good the rest of the week. Like I'll be back in Like if I have some sweet potato in the evening, I'll be back in ketosis the next morning and have tons of energy for the next few days. But yeah, I have noticed that eating too many carbohydrates definitely makes my IBS worse. But obviously, if you're lowering carbohydrate intake, you need to replace those carbs with something else, healthy fats, because you need to be getting energy from somewhere. Protein, I eat a lot of protein. Even when I'm on a ketogenic diet, I eat a lot of protein. Some lean, but a lot of fatty protein. Eggs, chicken, fish, salmon, lamb, beef. Lamb is probably my favourite meat to eat. I like to eat ground lamb, or as we call it in England, lamb mince. Lamb steaks. But yeah, this is the sort of nutritional approach that I take with my diet. Took a lot of trial and error to find out which foods work for me, which foods I'm really intolerant to. And the thing is, it's kind of hard to tell how these foods affect you, how these problematic foods affect you, until you take them out for like at least a month. And so that's what I spent a lot of time doing over the last couple of years, following a paleo diet all of the time, and a ketogenic diet the vast majority of the time. There's not one or two evenings a week I'll have some, sweet potato, I'll have some carbs, and I'll be kicked out of ketosis for the rest of the day until the next morning. But not a big deal. I feel like I've got a ton of energy all throughout the week. I just eat the foods that make me feel good, don't make my symptoms worse, and that I enjoy to eat. None of this is like medical advice or anything. This is just what works for me, what I've done to find out what works for me. But my only advice to other people would be, everybody is different because everybody has a different body. I've got chronic IBS, gastritis and acid reflux, and this is what works for me.